History books tell you about World War I through the trenches. But no one tells you about the war that happened in banks, in vault rooms, and in secret meetings. Yet the fate of the world was actually written there, without a single bullet being fired. And that war is still going on today. We usually remember and know World War I through trenches, cannons, and soldiers. But the truth is, this war did not exist only on the battlefield. A large part of the real war happened in banks, in vaults, and in accounting books. Soldiers shed blood. But in another place, men in suits were sitting and calculating numbers. And actually, the decisions they made at those tables shaped not only the outcome of the war, but also the financial system we are still living in today. If you think war is only about politics and armies, I suggest you think again. World War I showed us one very clear thing. Money is also a weapon, and one of the most dangerous ones. In 1914, Europe was already a place ready to explode. Countries were angry at each other. Everyone was arming themselves. Alliances were being formed. But under all this talk of honor and empire, there was a simple truth. To continue a war this big, an unbelievable amount of money was needed. And the bad part is this. When leaders chose war, they were also choosing debt. With every army going to the front, the people were also moving toward a future bill that would have to be paid. Actually, back then, most people thought the war would be short. They were assuming maybe it will be over by Christmas. We'll pay with gold, we'll borrow a little, the people will donate. They thought they would handle it. But very quickly it was realized that this war was literally burning money. At that time, the system was still based on the gold standard, meaning countries could say, if you want, you can exchange this paper money for gold. This gave confidence. But at the same time, it tied the hands of governments because gold was limited in amount. You could not print money forever. With millions of soldiers on the battlefield and factories producing only weapons, expenses exploded. Germany was spending millions of marks in a single day. Britain's daily war costs reached millions of pounds. Gold would not be enough. This was very clear. So governments quietly broke the rules. They suspended the gold standard. And in fact, they were telling the people this. This money is no longer based on gold, but on your trust in the state. And this moment was very, very important, because from that day on, money was disconnected from metal. It became tied to printing presses, credit, and propaganda. And governments got used to this comfort. They never went back. Since Germany was isolated from the outside world, it turned to borrowing from its own people. They launched big campaigns, posters, heroic soldiers, calls to save for the nation. People invested all their savings into war bonds. They thought they would get it back once victory came. But defeat came, and those bonds turned into almost worthless pieces of paper. All the money that millions of people had saved disappeared. This anger would later open the door to much darker things. England, on the other hand, was more lucky in this matter, because London was already the financial center of the world. And there was also a very important door, America. At that time, America had not officially entered the war, but the banks were already involved. Giant financial companies like J.P. Morgan were arranging loans for England and France and managing weapon and goods purchases. So America had already taken the leading role in financing the war. This was not a good deed. This was power. And when the war ended, America was no longer a debtor country, but the largest creditor in the world. The center of finance slowly shifted from London to Wall Street. The American century began not on the battlefield, but in bank vaults. France also went deep into debt. Bonds were collected from the people, but the real big money still came from America. And after the war ended, these debts turned into a big problem that poisoned politics. In Russia, things were even worse. The economy was weak, the system was exhausted, debt was taken, money was printed, inflation exploded. In the end, the economy collapsed, and the regime collapsed as well. Behind the revolution, there were not only ideas, but also monetary chaos. When the war ended, the picture that appeared was very bad. Countries had spent amounts of money never seen before in history. Debt was like a mountain, money was worthless, the system was shattered. And who do you think paid the price? Not the rich. They moved their money elsewhere in time, invested in assets, even got the information early. The ones who paid the price were once again ordinary people. But the most important point is this. This were taught governments something. If they want, they can separate money from reality and finance today by mortgaging the future. And this method never disappeared again. In the Great Depression, in the 2008 crisis, and today, the same story was repeated again with different names. Authorities said, it's temporary. They said, don't worry. They said the same thing in 1914, and people believed it until their money started to melt away. When central banks create money today, when governments increase debts, remember this. This is not something new. This is a game that's been going on for 100 years. And finally, let me say this. The moment money is disconnected from reality, it becomes a tool of control through taxes, through inflation, through the erosion of your savings. In the end, the cost always comes to the people. Real wealth is not just the number in your bank account. Real wealth is realizing the system and not being deceived. History has shown this again and again. So remember, history does not repeat itself exactly, but it rhymes. The same games are staged again under different names. And if you don't have knowledge, you are usually on the losing side of that game.